Welcome, everyone, to the Sports Writers Podcast. There they are, the Sports Writers, Phil Stacey, Matt Williams, Nick Giannino, all from the Salem News. We're missing Nick Kukaru tonight from the Gloucester Times. We're recording on Monday night prior to our Tuesday morning posting. But, gentlemen, we've been doing a lot of football the last few weeks, and we'll continue to do a lot of football here in this podcast as well. But let's start with some of the other sports also reaching that Final Four stage. Nick Giannino, I know you caught the prep soccer team Sunday over at the prep in some beautiful weather, if I remember correctly that day. But they're undefeated still, and they're rolling along.
Yeah, fortunately, I was up in the wonderful press box, or one of many that they have up at St. John's Prep now. So I was dry, but yeah, pretty nasty weather. St. John's Prep, as you mentioned, Bill, undefeated on the year. They're 20-0-1 now. Nice win over Concord Carlisle. They fell behind early 1-0, which was only the second time, according to head coach Dave Kroll, that they trailed all year. They were down 1-0 against Revere earlier in the year, and came back to win that one 3-1. And then yesterday, Sunday, they pulled it out 2-1. So this is a really deep team. I thought they should have been the top seed in Division One. They finished as the number 3, even though they had beaten both St. John's Shrewsbury, who's number 2 and going to be their next opponent in the Final Four. And they also beat Needham 4-0, pretty good, who was the top seed. So, but power rankings had them otherwise. They're number 3. At this point, I guess it doesn't really matter. I mean, they had their home games. They won them. They're going to the neutral site now. They're going to be taking on, like I said, St. John's Shrewsbury on Wednesday in Woburn. So that should be a great game. I mean, it's a team they beat, I believe, 1-0, and then their other game they tied them, and that's the Prep's only tie of the year. So kind of a rival for them, and obviously another great team. So that should be a really fun game. But I've been so impressed with this Eagles team. I've covered a lot of good St. John's Prep soccer teams over the years. They have a great program, but this might be the best one. I mean, they haven't won a state championship since 2006. So those kids they really got that on the back of their mind. Every time I talk to the coach, he just thinks that they're in a great spot. They have, like I said, they have so much depth, a lot of firepower offensively. They got a great goalkeeper in Yanni Andrikopoulos. That's been just awesome all year. He was the Catholic Conference Player of the Year. Their back line of defenders is terrific. We've talked about them before with Will Minor, Jeffrey Lopez, and I believe it's Ross O'Brien. They have some other defenders they rotate in and out that are, they don't miss a beat with those guys. Offensively, again, they just have so much firepower. I mean, they had a freshman come up from JV for the playoff run. He's got 2 goals. He had one Sunday against Concord Carlisle, and he put one in against Beverly as well. So they're getting contributions from all over the field.
This is what Dave's 22nd season, I want to say, coaching.
I know it's low 20s. I'd have to double check, but that sounds right. Yeah.
And he's got north of 300 wins, I know. And obviously he coached that team to the 2006 state title. I'd be interested to hear, maybe in his point of view, how maybe the game has changed in those 16 years from then to now, maybe how the players, if they've changed at all, if their training methods are different, if where everything now is on turf and maybe there was still some grass games back then, if that changes things at all, or just what type of athletes he's getting.
Yeah. I mean, and looking back in the past 6 seasons since I've been with the Salem News covering them, they've had some really good teams. Like I've mentioned, they've made some good runs, but a lot of those teams had 1 or 2, maybe 3 really good players. This team, it's like you don't know who's going to beat you each day. They had a bunch of kids, a few different kids score at least 10 goals. They just pass the ball so well. They're unselfish. They're really good on their set pieces, corner kicks, free kicks, that kind of thing. They capitalize there, and then their defense has just been great. That goal they let up against Concord Carlisle was only the 7th goal they've allowed all year.
So, Nick,
impressive.
they've I talked to Dave Kroll a couple of weeks ago, and they're had a lot of close games, but they're still undefeated. Yeah. They're not, you don't find them because of their schedule that they play. They don't have like a lot of 8-1 kind of games or 8-0 things. They've got tight games.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of their games are, 1-0, 2-0, 2-1. And that comes down to their defense, and then they know how to kill games too. You know, they're really good at possessing the ball. So if the team's chasing a goal at the end of the game, they're more than likely going to maintain the ball, run the clock out, and that's what they're doing. Even their keeper is very smart with how he, you know, approaches saves and different balls coming his way, and when to kick it out of bounds, when to dive on it, when to hold it a little longer to run some clock, that kind of thing. So they're just a smart team, and yeah, their depth is just overpowered teams.
I would say too, and Willie, you're good at remembering stuff like this, but Jake Vanna prep has a chance to do something that I can't ever recall being done before, which is win a state championship in 3 different sports. And this isn't to disparage anyone who runs track that maybe won titles, you know, individually, like indoor, outdoor, and cross country or anything like that. I'm talking 3 different sports. So Jake's won 2 state titles in lacrosse. He won a state title last winter with the prep hockey team. And now he's got a chance to, should they beat Shrewsbury on Wednesday, play for the state title, win a third, well, it would be a 4th state title, but a 3rd different state title. And he's still only a junior. I mean, that's crazy. Can you think of anyone else, Willie, who's done that? I know there was some Danvers kids 20 years ago that did the hockey baseball trifecta in 2001, you know, the Scotty Bevins and the Ryan Hayes and Matty Valentines and those kids. But I can't remember anyone who's won 3 state titles in 3 separate sports.
It's pretty crazy. I certainly don't remember one. I don't know if Willie does, but not only that, but he's a key player on all those teams.
Right.
I mean, he's one of their best midfielders in soccer, no question. You know, doesn't score a ton of goals, but wins a lot of balls in the midfield and kind of controls play there. And we know what he does on the lacrosse field. I don't know how he is in hockey, but I imagine, you know, first or second liner, right?
You know what I'm thinking.
First line winger this year.
There could be a player on somewhere that was hidden, you know, that you didn't, that wasn't a star, like Nick's pointing out, that maybe sat the bench on 3 state championship teams. You know,
I don't know though. I mean, how many schools have won 3 state titles?
No, yeah,
not named St. John's Prep within a year that somebody.
No, I get you. Yeah,
not a year, but in
a three's a lot. I mean, I can think of several instances of 2, but 3 is prohibitive. I mean, you really would have to be the prep to do that. That's kind of, you know, that's a whole other conversation. But I mean, because Fenwick had a couple of girls that won both volleyball and girls basketball, I think.
Colleen Corcoran, was she on one of those?
I don't think she played volleyball. She was a soccer player, but
okay.
Kids that crossed over. What was the other one that I was thinking of a second ago?
Did Masco ever do it in soccer, boys soccer and baseball?
No.
I think Pat Fryermuth might have been close with Pentucket. I know he took that hoop team far in their football team, right? Did their football team win a Super Bowl that year? Close to it.
Yeah.
I don't recall.
Well, we'll let you keep your thinking caps on here. As a matter of looking at the clock here for time here, let's jump ahead here. Do we want to? Can we touch on just girls soccer or field hockey? Any quick notes from those 2 before and then volleyball? We got to move quickly along here, so we have some time for football here.
Yeah, let me mention Ipswich volleyball playing in the state semifinals Wednesday. They're taking on Weston High School up in Tewksbury. Tewksbury High was where they won the state title last year. This is Ipswich, of course, I'm talking about, against Medway. And Ipswich would love for the chance to defend that title in the title match this coming weekend. Got to beat Weston first. Seems like Weston has been a bit of on a Cinderella run here in the playoffs. They were 11-8 during the regular season, but they've reached the state semifinals. They were the number 5 seeds. They had a really good seeding, but they beat, I want to say it was Southbridge and Arlington Catholic, and then they upset Nipmunk, the number 4 seed, 3-2 in the quarterfinals to reach the round of 4 here. And Ipswich has been the number 1 seed, as we know. They've won each of their matches 3-1. They beat Stoneham. They beat Advanced Math and Science Academy, and then they beat Medway, who, like I said, they beat in the state finals last year. So they've done a great job this season. They're 19-2 in the year. I know that they've got an excellent couple of captains in Grace Sorensen. I know they have Tessa Flynn, who's played really well, Kendra Brown, Addison Pillis, Carolyn Bailey, I know has played really well. Who's their other captain? Rachel Oliva. Rachel Oliva is the other captain. So Stacy Sonke's team is playing really well. You'd have to think they're favored against Weston, but I suppose you never know. It will be determined on the court, and we'll be there and have coverage. Gene DePlasso will be following that, so you can read about it on Twitter Wednesday night or Thursday in the newspaper or on our website.
All right. How about field hockey, Phil? Why don't you, we are on a roll. Why don't you just pick up on and just take field hockey and take the stick and go up the field? Let's go.
On a roll, huh?
Yeah.
Unlike Nick, I didn't sit in the press box the other day. I stood out in the rain.
I saw Jameson. He goes, "Oh, you're a smart man." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm soft. I'm not sitting out there. Put me in the press box."
Hey, Phil, are the shorts, you keeping the shorts this week?
No, I didn't wear the shorts.
No? All right.
Amanda Porter, one of our favorite trainers over at Danvers, said, well, I'm glad to see you put the shorts away. I'm like, well, I didn't put them away. I'm just not wearing them today. It's 48 and rainy. So, no, I didn't wear them that day. But, yeah, this is crazy. We got two teams in the state semifinals. I'm not sure this has ever happened before. Certainly not to my knowledge. Masconomet, not really a surprise that they're there. And actually, I don't really think Danvers is a surprise either. They were the 6th seed, both Division II teams. They were the 6th seed, but I think they're as good as any team in the division. I thought at the start of the year they were good enough to win a state title. I still believe that. I think Masconomet clearly has the chops to do so. And it's great that they're going to get to play back-to-back on Wednesday in their respective state semifinals out at Shrewsbury School. So Masconomet will be taking on Longmeadow, which is a power in the field hockey and lacrosse worlds. They are the number 4 seed, of course. Masconomet led by Maggie Sturgis, 45 goals. I mean, just crazy. That's more than entire teams have. Julia Graves, the other co-captain, has been fantastic as well. She's got about a dozen goals. Her sister, freshman Sarah Graves, has been great. Greta Mowers, another senior forward, is terrific. Avery Allen, all kinds of great defensive players. Sophie Dumas, Maddie Whalen in goal. I mean, it's just a really, really tough team to beat, and they can score so quickly, and they have so much firepower that it's tough for any team that falls behind to try to make that up against the Masconomet team. Danvers is a little bit different in that they don't have the same firepower. They have a lot more spread out scoring. I think that they rely a lot more on team defense, and this is a team that doesn't panic when they get behind. They fell behind on the road Sunday in the rain, which I was outside in, Nick, at number 3 Reading. Fell behind 1-0. Had a goal disallowed shortly after that off a corner. Didn't panic, didn't deviate. Willie, you got a friend in the background there. Stuck with their game plans and came back, tied it up off another corner. Abby Scher got the goal there, and then junior Bobby Serino gets the go-ahead goal early in the 3rd quarter, and they just kept riding that momentum. They kept pushing the play. They got great defense from goalie Megan McGinnity and Maddie Chase and the Papa Michael Cousins and Megan McGowan in front of them. And Danvers is off to the Final Four for the first time in 31 years. So they'll take on number 2 Neshoba Tech. I can't say that I know a lot about Neshoba. That's one of my projects tonight, is trying to find out a little bit about them. But, the odds would say, I mean, sure, both teams could lose, but it's probably more likely that one team will advance to the state final, if not both teams win. And that would be something if we had Danvers and Masconomet playing each other for the title. I've talked about it on the podcast before. The only state champion ever from this region was Rockport High School back in 1984. There has never been one from the Salem News area proper. So it's exciting that we could have the chance to have one this year. And, at this point, with 4 teams left in Division II, it's a 50-50 chance that it happens. So that's kind of neat. All
Do you
right.
guys think, just a question I've been thinking, do you guys think it's it's harder to win now with the statewide format, or it was harder before with the sectionals? Because I feel like a lot of the really good teams ended up being in the North a lot of years, depending on the sport, but it just seems like teams are advancing
Well, it's
more.
funny. Willie and I were talking about this recently about how like some of the strongest, say, football programs appear to be on the South Shore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
this year.
You know,
Yeah.
like really, King Philip and Milton and Milford and Bishop Thean and Spelman and all these different schools. So yeah, maybe I think maybe it's a little bit more, for the proponents, Nick, of those that push the statewide format are in favor of it. I suppose you could say that, yeah, it's very unlikely to get a blowout in the state finals or state semifinals unless one team is, I could see like a Catholic Memorial football blowing somebody out
True.
in Division II. But I think by and large, you're going to see pretty good games in the state semifinals and respective finals. So for that reason, yeah, I think it's you're nowadays.
I also think
I
it's
think
hilarious
but-
I think it's hilarious that they get a trophy for making the Final Four.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Even the teams getting it are like, what are we doing? What, we shouldn't be celebrating this. Like,
it's hey, if you want to spend money on things that don't matter, buy the media meals. Do that.
yeah,
Well,
right.
there
No,
you
really.
go.
I mean, I think it's me personally. If you're holding up a North sectional trophy or banner, that means something. You've
Yeah.
the North, like, which is cool. Now it's like, oh, all right. Well, now we're in the state semis, and we might have beaten a team from the North.
But Phil, it's the same
Central.
thing. There were four. There is North, South, Central, West. There are four. So it's this Final Four
Right.
trophy is just like winning the North Trophy, really. I mean, so
Well,
there's no more.
that's what they
Technically,
say.
yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I
the
mean-
NCAA does it. They give out Final Four trophies. I mean, as far as easier or harder goes, I think it all depends on what sport you're in and what division you're in, right? I mean, these divisions got changed a little bit. So, if you're Hamilton Wenham and now you're in Division 4 for the girls' sports, well, it's easier because you were in 3 before and you had tougher competition.
Yeah.
If you're Masco, Watertown's not in your way. If you're Gloucester, Watertown is in your way. It's a lot harder for you. If
Yeah.
you're Peabody and you got to play Bishop Fian in the first round, instead of playing a Reading team you probably would have beat, instead of playing the North teams and then going to Gillette, it's harder. So I think like for every sport and every division has its own nuances. For some of our teams, it's easier. For some of our teams, it's harder. For teams like St. John's Prep, it's probably the same because they've been in the Division 1, the whole time, no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just jump to football here. Speaking of that kind of divisional thing, you got in Division 5 football, Bishop Fenwick playing North Reading, two teams that, it'd be great if they could meet in Gillette, but it just doesn't work out that way. But you can't complain about that piece. They're both in the Final Four, if you will. They happen to be playing each other Friday night, but I think that looks like one of the great matchups. One of them, of course, the Prep's involved with Central Catholic again on Friday night, but let's just talk a little football. Where do you guys want to begin? Since I brought up Fenwick, let's just go there first and deal with that one. But Fenwick's on a roll, it appears, as is North Reading. And Fenwick is, what was I going to say here? They're very similar to North Reading offensively and maybe even defensively as well. Maybe they're a little better defensively, who knows? But two very balanced teams, it would appear, meeting Friday at Manning Field.
I think Fenwick's been probably a little bit more battle tested despite the seeding. You look at the number of Catholic Central League teams that are left. I think it's 4 teams in the Final Four in
I want to
various
say it's
divisions.
4, yeah.
I think Cape Ann League has 2. Amesbury's still playing, but I look at North Reading's September, and all due respect, they played 2 tech schools. I mean, so that's nothing like playing Bishop Fian, right? So, but
North Reading's outscored their last 2 opponents 90-18.
no, but even in September, their non-league games, they didn't exactly up on the iron. They didn't go get Marblehead. They didn't go get, Tewksbury. I mean, they played Northeast and Greater Lawrence, and it's worked out for them. But so that's why I say Fenwick's probably a little bit more battle tested. But both these teams were in the Final Four last year on opposite sides of the bracket, right? Both lost to Swampscott on the way, and so now this year they're both back. So certainly two very experienced coaching staffs and very experienced players on both sides. So I think that is potentially a factor as well. Neither one's going to be worried about the bright lights, right? Because they've both been there before.
I would have liked to have had the chance to see North Reading this year because they have been so explosive and they've blown out some teams. I was shocked when they lost to Amesbury during the regular season. I mean, early on from afar, they looked like they had the makings of a team that was going to run the table in the regular season. So I was really taken aback by that. But they, righted the ship. They pounded everybody else they played. I feel like last year, I don't think we were shy about saying that they were probably not going to beat either Fenwick or Swampscott. And, they actually didn't play too badly in the Super Bowl. What was it, 14-7 final last year, Willie?
I believe it was, although it was a little misleading because if there wasn't that bogus flag on the pick six, it would have been 21-0. But
yeah, true.
Nonetheless, it was closer. No, I mean it was a one-score game in the fourth quarter, and
Right.
none of us expected that. And full credit to North Reading for that.
Full credit. Yep, I agree.
They're a well-coached team. They're very good. I just
they
think,
really are. And
Phil, I've seen North Reading twice this year, and I did see the Amesbury game. And I've only seen Fenwick once this year, but I would say that if North Reading had a game that they wanted to do over, it would be that Amesbury game because Amesbury came out on fire. I give Amesbury a lot of credit. They're a solid team, and they came to play that night. And I saw North Reading. I think maybe there was the previous week when they just blew out Triton, just blew them off the field basically. And that I don't think it was the same North Reading team, from week to week, to be honest with you. So, but I think the real North Reading team will be back. They're ready to go now. I mean, that's what.
Yeah.
With the exception of Amesbury, they've blown everybody off the field. I mean, they're averaging almost 45 points a night.
Yeah.
Every single game they've won by more than 15. It looks like most games they've won by more than 30. So they've been really taking most of the teams in the Cape Ann League to the woodshed. I mean, I'm just going to read these off: 48-0, 48-6, 47-8, 46-7, 54-16. That's all their Cape Ann League scores, and their playoff scores are outscoring their opponents 90-18. So I mean, I don't care who you're playing. That is very impressive.
I mean, and they've got the running backs, they've got the passers, they've got the receivers, they've got defenders, and they've got the kicker. Matt Guidebeck.
I'm sure.
Come in handy. Everything. And a lot of those guys were on the team last year, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
right.
No, I mean, I remember sitting in that press box last year as the game went on. It was very close. And, looked at somebody, must have been Phil, and just said, well, this team's going to be back here next year. Just looking at the roster, how many juniors there were. And, here we are, and they're one game away. And Fenwick obviously has a whole bunch of guys that would like to be there, too. I mean, remember, this senior class was freshmen when they lost the Super Bowl in 2019. They had it taken away from them by COVID. I mean, everybody knows Fenwick would have been in the Super Bowl that COVID year. And last year they were a game away. So, I mean, these guys are looking for their bite at the apple. They've been really, really close, every time.
And I think it's important to know, too, Fenwick's got a ton of firepower of its own. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know that they've been blowing out teams with the same intensity maybe as North Reading has, but Bryce Lehman has put up great numbers for Fenwick this year. I want to say he's thrown for over 2,000. I know he's thrown for over 2,000 yards. He got 20 touchdowns against only 3 interceptions. Costa Beecham's been a beast for them with over 700 yards receiving, 9 touchdowns. A lot of receiving options between Luke Connolly, caught 2 touchdowns the other night against Maynard, Mike Zamey, Troy Irizarry out of the backfield, Curtis Brutch. Running the ball, you got Irizarry with the well-balanced attack with Nichols and Lehman. I think combined they've rushed for about 1,100 yards. The scoring is pretty balanced between Irizarry, Beach, and Nichols. I think between the 3 of them, they have, I want to say, like 32 touchdowns. So, and Luke Connolly with another 5 or 6. They have their own kicker in Aiden Silva. They got a great defense led by Aiden Green, Mike DeFelice, and Luke Connolly. So, it sounds, again, not having seen North Reading at all, it sounds like this is going to be a clash of 2 teams with very similar strengths and depth and speed and athleticism, which should make for a terrific game Friday night over at Manning.
How about a quick note on St. John's Prep Central Catholic? Of course, that's the Prep lost to Central Catholic earlier this year. I heard Coach Brian St. Pierre say on MSO News Sports, just a little aside there, but saying that that was probably their worst game of the year. Maybe I think they said that. Wouldn't be a surprise, I guess. But it's a different prep team now. I mean, it just seems like it's a different team now, as we've been talking about.
That's what Brian said after the game. He said, we're a different team than we were at the beginning of the year. They got healthy. They got whole. They found a quarterback that, they can really put the ball in his hands and make some plays happen. And, they ran all over Andover, who was unbeaten, had the higher seed. They were at home. A lot of people said, oh, they got a great chance to upset the Prep. They weren't even in their class. I mean, it wasn't even close. And no disrespect to Andover. They had some great athletes. I was really impressed with their quarterback, but St. John's Prep was just too big, too fast, too physical, and they wore them down. So I think they're peaking at the right time.
And Nick, what you said in your story, they had 3 running backs with over 100 yards, right?
Yeah. So after further review, apparently a couple of the carries from John El Aguero were actually technically passes. So he finished with more receiving yards than rushing yards. So
okay.
Technically, it was 2 guys over 100, and then you had Aguero with the all-purpose over 100. But in any case, yeah, it was they ran all over them. And it wasn't just like small gains moving the chains. It was big play after big play. They got out in space, and yeah, they just got a ton of athletes, and their line played great.
Oh, so Central Catholic defeated the Prep obviously in this spot a year ago, after having lost to St. John's during the regular season. If this score is right, 49-14.
Right.
So the shoe could be on the other foot. We've been saying it for a couple of weeks. Central wins the regular season. Maybe the Prep wins the playoff game. Interestingly enough, Central Catholic has not defeated St. John's Prep in 3 consecutive meetings since 1956 to 58. So how's that for a fun fact?
Wow.
I don't even think Chuck Adamopoulos' father, Arthur, was coaching at that time. So that's a long way back. So obviously Central, having won the playoff game last year and the regular season game this year, that's 2 in a row. They do not beat the Prep 3 in a row very often. And of course, before those 2 games, the Prep had won the previous 4, including a North Championship in 2018 when the Prep was on the way to their first of back-to-back Super Bowls. So this is the 3rd playoff meeting between these teams and these coaching staffs in the last 4 tournaments, not, skipping the 2020 season. So they're certainly very familiar. There are no secrets. And I will say, very interesting. I looked up, the Prep was held to a net loss of 11 rushing yards in the first game, minus 11 rushing yards from scrimmage. And of course, against Andover, as Nick mentioned, they had 371 rushing yards. So whatever they've been doing with their offensive line over there is working. And you got to imagine there's no way that Central's going to be able to hold them negative again. I mean, I don't know that they're going to run up 300 plus yards on that Central Catholic defense, but wow. I mean, in just 9 weeks, I hope that, the running backs, they should take a page from Matt Terrio's book from Pingree and bring some munchkins for those offensive linemen. How much have they improved?
I love that.
To go from minus 11 to near 4 bills. I mean, that's unbelievable.
To me, again, not having seen Central, it appears to me to be, can they stop the Prep's offense again? And sounds crazy. They did in week 2. They allowed a punt return touchdown, and that was it to Aguero. So, I mean, shutting out the Prep offensively is certainly something to hang your hat on. As has been mentioned here before, I think the Prep is a very different team. I think, as Nick alluded to, they found the answer that they're looking for, a quarterback with Deacon Robillard. He's thrown for almost 700 yards in only about 4 games since he was made the starter against BC High. He's completing 67% of his passes, 7 touchdowns, only 1 interception. I mean, look who he's throwing the ball to, too. Not only Aguero, a game breaker anytime he touches the football, but Jesse O'Fury, another Division I guy going to Rutgers, 556 yards, I think, and 5 touchdowns. Steph Patrick, imagine having Steph Patrick as your 3rd option. I mean,
he's a freak athlete. I mean, that
crazy.
kid, and they don't. Deacon doesn't throw a lot of deep balls, but he hit Steph Patrick on a route down the sideline. It was a beautiful pass right in his pocket.
Well, that's the
So,
thing. I mean, whether they throw those bubble screens or rub routes or, whatever, they just want to get the ball to their athletes in space. Carson Brown's another guy. And I know, Will, you were just talking about the rushing yardage, but Carson Brown did not play in that game. Carson Brown has essentially played half a season. Carson Brown has almost 700 yards and 10 touchdowns since he came back and has been healthy for St. John.
and he had over 100 against Andover in the first half and didn't play in the second half because he was a little banged up.
Yeah, I mean, he's been doing it on minimal touches too. He's averaging about 7 yards a carry. That big line is getting pushed up front. The defense has been playing a lot better. I don't know. Is it Mike Ryan who's the big scorer for Central? And I want to say the quarterback. I'm going to mess up his name. Is it Blake Hopart or something like that? Again, I got to look that up. Central's had a great year. To me, what jumps out is they lost that great 1-point game to Andover in October. The prep just blew Andover out.
It was 30-29. Andover
30-29,
Central
right.
Catholic. I think it was September 30th, maybe.
So it was late September.
Yeah, last weekend.
I know Central is a better team than when they beat St. John's. I'm 1,000% certain St. John's prep is. I think the Eagles are coming in with an awful lot of swagger right now. And they are looking at it as if, yeah, you might be the highest seed. You might be wearing the white jerseys. We're wearing our darks. You might have beaten us already before, but you got to come beat us. That's how they approach it. They're approaching it with a winner's mentality. Not that Central isn't, but I think that the prep is really the prep, which has been an enigma for a good part of the season. They play well. They play well in like a loss to Catholic Memorial, and then they look poor in wins. And they were a little bit hard to figure out, but it really seems like the last 3 games, especially since the playoffs have hit, they have been rolling. And I know a big part of that is the health of the team. Guys are back. Key guys are back, captains and whatnot. But I feel like they are truly playing their best football when it matters most. I think they're a good bet on Friday night.
All right, guys, we just have a couple minutes left. Any random thoughts from anybody you want to share? It doesn't have to be on football. Could be on football. Could be on anything.
Well, we had both the Pingree boys and girls soccer teams win, right, Willie? They won the EIL championships over the weekend.
Yeah. New England's starting this week, Wednesday.
And
New
field
England's...
hockey. Yeah.
And field hockey. Yeah.
Yep. So they're all starting New England's, but for the first time in a while, Pingree football won't be in a bowl game. Two difficult losses to end the season, including this past weekend up at Dexter Southfield. That sounds like it was a great game that Pingree led for a good part of it, and the hosts Dexter made a nice run at the end there to pull off the win. So a really good season for Pingree, but it will not end in a bowl berth for them.
I think both the teams they lost to are going to bowl games, right? I know Dexter is. I'm guessing St. Paul's too, right?
All 3, yeah, and Proctor is too.
Hey, and how about Endicott football hosting an NCAA playoff game?
They beat Proctor.
Saturday.
They only get 2 losses. Yeah.
What'd
you say, Bill?
I'm sorry, Endicott football hosting an NCAA playoff game on Saturday afternoon.
Against Springfield at noon. That's really cool. To do that. Great to see. I mean, I think the last game they had, if I'm not mistaken, was really the only close game they played all season.
Really? Yeah.
5-point game. So it'll be interesting to see now, undefeated at home, a lot of expectations. You want to get past this first round. What are they going to do? Will the Gulls rise up and hopefully pull out a win?
Spread those wings.
That would be a great thing for the program.
Field of 32 NCAA Division III teams in that tournament. Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Anything else? I guess we got like 1 minute. Matt, Phil, Nick, anything else? Hey, I got to ask you, Matt. How about Shea Lynch's performance last weekend? Even though it wasn't a playoff game.
7 touchdowns, not bad, I guess. I just hope.
But it was like how many yards though, Matt? How many yards was that?
453.
453, yeah.
Yeah, not a bad day at the office. They got a pretty good offense, I think. And they did a lot more damage to Bishop Fee than Reading did. So I hope the people out there that were snickering and calling them frauds rethink that after they saw that score.
That was a surprising score. Yeah, absolutely.
If you watch Fee, and it really wasn't, but
I hear you.
But that's just how it is. That the physical teams handle those spread teams. But I think I'm glad that they got to play a team like Westford that was able to score a little bit that allowed Shea to do that for a whole game. Because I'm guessing he's probably only going to get half on Thanksgiving, right? He's not going to be able to throw 7 touchdown passes because Saugus isn't going to keep pace. So that could be like a really nice last hurrah for him to kind of get it out of his system and prove that he really is probably the second best quarterback in the state. So that was cool.
And get ready for hoop season. He's a good hooper too.
There you
One
go.
other North Shore quarterback has 7 touchdowns in a game, and it was Colton Fahey of Pingree. So I'm guessing not a lot of people are up on that trivia question.
Hey,
You know, I was gonna ask if you knew that when I saw that he had thrown for 7 the other night. And
Phil, we are gonna get chopped off here if we
okay.
not that I want to chop you off, Phil. That's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to do that. But
Hey, you know, if we had the tape, cut it
I know that on that note, thank you guys, and we'll talk again soon. Yeah.